In motherhood, do you think that you can sustainably nurture others while treating your own pain like an inconvenience? Let's hold some space for this. Welcome. This is the Healing for Her podcast. I'm your host, Nicola P. Hawkins, a faith filled woman, wife, mother, home educator, and a therapist. My hope is to encourage women, especially mothers, who experience distress and overwhelm in life by reminding her that what's hard is only part of her story and that she can shift from despair. Rather, awakening, healing to flourish well by compassionately connecting with her heart to experience order, vitality, and fullness in her right now season of life. I mean, who doesn't want to walk in their God given worth more healthfully? I invite you to linger a little longer with me and see what moves within. So, if this is you, or you know a friend steady thinking that your pain is a sign of weakness or a threat to how you're keeping all the plates spinning, let's uncover some things. I hope you are doing well today. If not, I'm glad you're here. And like the intro says, this is only part of your story, not to negate what might feel hard. And I'm just glad you're here today. I know last week I shared a bit, or last time I shared a bit about motherhood and maternal health and wellness. And I got to thinking, what some of the factors that, um, and I shared some bit of it. And I think I wanted to expound a little bit more on the side of vulnerability, like as being one of those factors, asking what are the factors that might cause a mom to kind of stay in a perpetual state of not doing well or not being able to catch it and pivot earlier on rather than later. There are several points that I drew out, and for this time, I just wanted to slow down with this aspect of vulnerability. And, even now I'm thinking about how that is defined as being open to some sense of wounding. I think that's the definition. I'll I'll stand to be corrected, but I think that's what's coming to mind from previous research and just curiosity about words and and meaning. So, um, even I think back on my own story and stories that I listened to regarding other moms, like sometimes, it's not about, it's like the sense of, like, while skills are, um, in the sense of growing, as the years gone by, raising my own children, I started to think, what if I'm looking at this from a growing aspect, growing up with them, right? Yes, I'm their leader. I think even a position of mom, literally, you're under your children because they're like on top of your shoulder, right? There are seasons where you're right alongside them, you're holding their hand, helping them cross the street or what have you, get through the parking lot. And there are times where it's simply, look, you're going in the absolute opposite direction of where we need to go. So we're leading out ahead um and gently, tugging them along, right? And so sometimes it's like, okay, sometimes we can see this thing as like, is it skills? Um and then it's like, how do I grow in connection, in connective ways? Like those things might be the gap for some people. And one thing I know that feels resounding, and it is for a lot of mothers, is like they don't lack love. We don't lack love for our babies, for people. It's like that first resting eyes on them and seeing their preciousness and just how it just somehow catapults us into the state of being enamored and what feels like even pure bliss. And you're like, wait, I just experienced pain like that. Or maybe you're listening and your journey was through adoption, that pain of loss or just the sense of hoping and whatever the journey needed to look like for someone else. I know I realized my bias around that it comes to me quickly in this place of like I birthed the kids, and so that kind of a pain. I think even in an adoptive situation where however children land in our arms, there's pain at some point. But then it's like once they're there, it's like, man, I'm so enamored. I'm in love. And so I think that's the point, I'm trying to make here is like, as mothers, we're not lacking in love. Sometimes we lack maybe this. How do I grow up and with a kiddo? How do I connect? How do I guide them? What skills did I show up with? And the struggle somehow, make mothers just, slide out of the state of awe, maybe not, it's like gradual, not all of a sudden, I'm out of the state of awe, but things add up, feeling supported, not supported, how much load am I bearing versus if I look around, if I look to my spouse or, however that may look for your specific scenario, it begins to be, she's like now questioning parts of the journey, particularly as, the various and maybe at times unexpected pains that surfaces as we journey through just things that come up, So I think this is where, she, as a mother, her, either begin to speak up for what is needed, what she wants, she may state it clearly and somehow it gets dropped, or she unclearly states what she desires, and furthering a sense of confusion because it's like, did I say it clearly enough? Is this vulnerable? Like, how do I connect with my sense of self and needs and wants? And or it's like I've done this so many times and so it got dropped and now I'm holding back. And yeah, it's like I'm holding back and I no longer give myself like the sense of permission to be human in my pain, to have a need here, to like stuff down longings. And so it's like, I'm not going to own it. I'm not going to share it. I'm good. Right. And so somehow we kind of accidentally and sometimes intentionally kind of get to that place where it's like, I'm not being vulnerable about what I'm going through, or I may limit maybe who I'm vulnerable to or how much. And dare I say for good reasons why you might have, or a friend, right, might have gotten to this spot, right? And the trick here is like, can you see the complexities? All the moves that are being made, those different kinds of micro decision making. So either like you move towards like trying to accomplish this place of, okay, I'm going to connect with myself, to connect with others. And I somehow, if it gets dropped, it's like, I'm still wanting. Or that is like so pervasive, whatever you're navigating, that even when I get some, it feels like it's still not enough because my cup has been ran so empty. You know what I mean? And so what do you do with this part? What do you do with this part? I know I have my versions of how I've tried to navigate this over the years. Some of it was helpful in some seasons, and then some of it wasn't as helpful. So I know, like, I like I said, I've definitely hopped on and off this kind of a battlefield. What to say, not to say, how much do I connect with what I need? How do I share it? So on and so forth. Like where I took the risk and then learn, hey, this is where you close ranks on those pains, retreat, or it just sometimes all out fight or flight, and the thing is like these still left me stuck with pain. I've worked with other um, moms over the years and women that is just like, man, I've buried that thing so good, but sometimes it's like, it's just there. So do you find yourself having the same combative experience? Or, maybe a girlfriend told you this or your spouse reflected this, you know? If so, like, I'm sure that pattern, like I said, has been there for good reasons. And I think motherhood just kind of have a way of bringing about some of these. So if you're not living in the state of tension and resistance to reveal pain, because maybe there's, nothing there, or just that I imagine that came from the hard work that you've already done and maybe continue to do and corrective experiences, right? Or somehow you just innately kind of have that, right? Je ne sais quoi. Or just some good early years of modeling that is so, mentoring that is so vital and important. But if this part is not your experience, can you see why losing connection within the self will become familiar? This place where within yourself where it's just like it just doesn't get touched by even you. And I think that's what I want to I think I'm due there's two parts to this because I was like thinking through and I was like, you know, I would love for you to get back in touch or dare to be curious. Because when we don't even touch these places in ourselves, explore these places within ourselves, I think that can cause a certain kind of impact that maybe is not what you're looking for. Um, I mean, if like no one is willing to go there with you, it almost sends a message to the self again, like why even bother going there? Um, and like the question that I've asked myself, and I've totally heard this, and being even in training, therapy training, like being prepared, it's like that whole if I open this can, like, how much time do you have for it, right? That sometimes people feel like maybe I'm too fragile to go there. But man, maybe, we're so well rehearsed in not going there. And maybe that's what needs to be flipped. So it's like the question of like, what if I find something in me I didn't anticipate? What if I find or feel like a bad person now that I'm looking at this and I don't know how to face like that part of me that yells, right? Because I mean, what does that say about say about the self, right? And if I say that something is not working the way I maybe dreamed of, or it's not the way I expected, that something simply doesn't feel right, or that I can't stop the spiraling thoughts, right? Okay, sidebar to this. Like, I've explored enough with others to see that what felt hard was only due to not giving the self permission to process. Like, if I don't make contact within me, if you don't make contact within you, right? Or the friend that you're trying to mentor or guide, person that you're trying to sit with pain, if they aren't able to make contact, right? Then coming to the realization that maybe things just needed some nuance, right? Um, giving the self permission. Like, How do I get curious to even move here? I've heard about this vulnerability thing, but that doesn't sound like fun. Or is it just me dumping out all my stories and and then even if I pull them out, like who's going to look at them and what are they going to say? Can I share this with my friend? Can I share this with my spouse or etc. um I think it can be a relief instead of like that sense of intensity that causes you to like um want to like escape this route of going down exploration and the spiraling. Sometimes we're in that and we're like wishing for something totally different. And so I guess what I'm wanting to offer is like, what if you can like in a way up spiral if you can kind of not only get lost in that, and with the hope of not only getting lost in that says I can give myself permission to be curious, compassionately curious about that place within, right? I think I've come to better understand that motherhood does not create all our wounds, right? But it often reveals what pain, what misses, what hopes, what fears, what rejections, what disappointments, like you name it, that has been there. Like it's been neatly organized and put away. For some of us, stuffed down, pushed to the side, like focused on what, you were normed to. Like this is how you survive. It's all just somehow all just lingering in the background of our hearts and so waiting. What does this mean, right? What does this mean that that's just there? What? It's this is it I think it's like you know, I think it's so like automatic that we do these things. I know I can maybe flitter back earlier on, like I would not have said I'm pushing anything down or to the side or that I felt any pervasive sense of um, rejection or anything like that. But oh boy, the more I made more connection with myself, it's just interesting how, you know, being pressed in motherhood, being pressed against, can really reveal that these kinds of things are just low-lying inflammation, right? I'm reminded that motherhood is also not just victimhood. I think you stay on the playground enough, and maybe this is back in my day. Like you can just hear stories of weariness and without resolve. That always like hit me in a spot. It's like, is this all it's gonna be? Like we just kind of congregate and complain on how hard things are. And I've had my own version of that and my own scooping into that kind of a pile, but it only does so much for relief and like the kind of change maybe that we're desiring deep down, right? And I think although like we can identify with this on some like level of like you know feeling like of a victim, I don't know. Maybe it's like in some senses, maybe not in like in a totality, but maybe some parts of her journey. Maybe that part where it's like, whoa, I don't have skill for this. Whoa, I don't know what to do with this part, right? So I don't know. I just wanted to, instead of even like if somebody feels that sense of victimhood, like don't even that part, look at it. Like don't even feel like you need to stuff that and move away from it. I think it makes it feel more perpetuating. That gets just in the background gnawing, right? Another thing is like motherhood is not solely a dark alley where personal dreams go to die. I can raise my hand on like sentences like this that I've heard and therefore eventually felt in some way where I didn't really reason and think on this level initially. But hey, they say, you know, maybe be conscientious on where you linger, I guess. I'll put it that way. Um, you know, it's yeah, it's important how we set our minds. I don't know if I talked about that last time, but maybe that's another random conversation I was having with my spouse. I had to take a sip. Yeah, I think actually we were running and I was thinking about this the other day. So important how we set our mind and reframe things and see things, right? Um, like I think uh in motherhood, our dreams and our ideas and sense of how we identify may get redefined in nuance or something of that sort, right? But I think it's definitely a place where strengths can emerge and where you can shine. And again, it's also where like these unrevealed, vulnerable, hopeful parts awaken and ask to be held like a baby, right? It's new and it's so nuanced. You're like, I've not felt and expected this before, right? So the question is, can you allow this part of yourself to emerge? As I say that, I also am aware that it wasn't always easy or acceptable or allowed to reveal pain or to be vulnerable, right? And I think with this new sense of invitation, birthed in motherhood, like could you take that as a way of being curious with your own self? What if you didn't self-abandon or suppress those little nudges? So many things send nudges to our soul during this growing, shifting, and emerging stage of life. It's so natural, but it can also be frightening or exposing, anxious driven, um, can bring about depression because maybe we don't know, like, on a level of like chemically, and then also on a level of like some version of not knowing or feeling like something that was hoped for in the process. Maybe I thought I was going to be supported like this, that gets lost. And then somehow, maybe the unavailability of a spouse, like a child's disruption to a part of your normal process and rhythm of the day, or their meltdown, right? It's like, well, in them needing you all while just rejecting comfort. You picture that stage where like, oh gosh, you're snotty nose and you need this medicine and I'm trying to comfort you, but you're kind of, resisting, and, teenagehood has its own version of that. uh, so a child even ignoring direction, it all seems like it's happening to you all of a sudden, and you can sense the irritation. You feel your suppressed, tense, raging implosion, or more subtle than that, right? You can feel that stuff bubbling up. Again, whether or not you've consciously cued in, the sort of intensity doesn't start in that present moment. Remember, the feels an internal noise, right? Our loved ones bumping up, the kids resisting, they tend to come from older places being activated, like some version of like, I won't get the help that I need from my spouse, or I don't get the support, therefore I'm all alone in this. I'm failing. Pinch me on this one. I'm like, or some version of I'm too much, for my family. Like when I think I've landed on my maybe spouse's nervous system, one extra time, or I'm being too demanding on this child because they need something slightly different, or that some version of like, I think I said something like, no one is no one is helping and I need help. Who's gonna help? Or like I have to hold this together myself. Like if I don't do it, nothing is gonna be done. And if I fall apart, like everything falls apart. Any of this sound familiar to you? Yeah. And so that happened so long ago can also be this narrative, like something all of a sudden pops up out of the background. I do not get to need. Oof. I got to put my head down. This is what I was called to. I'm locking in. I don't get to have a need, right? And whatever your faith background that might have carried extra noise, this part, like after all, like bear your own burden can become like a staple sentence. But what about being comforted by others? It makes me think about how Jesus is carrying the cross, right? And like the willing, ready to lay his life down, yes. Yet there was someone along the way to help assist with the carry. There was him saying, I'm thirsty. Jesus saying, I'm thirsty, right? Just expressing these needs, whether or not they were all, I'm sure he was like, I'm tired. This is heavy. I don't want to carry, like, do I want to carry this anymore? You get the point. I think sometimes there's well-meaning of the self to be like virtuous and sacrificial. But what if it's beyond to the point where we don't even ask if this is the cup that I need to carry or let this pass, right? Being aware of the pain so much that we ask how else to carry this. I don't think those are bad or wrong questions, right? It's symbolizing this is weighty. And this is my friend who you know, uh like this aspect how these kind of questions, that's what my brain, it's like these kind of questions, right, is like would be asking in a sense of vulnerability with our weakness when we experience these, like, you know what I mean? You still with me? you know it's basically what I'm saying is like some of us has or is going about sacrificing for Jesus beyond sacrificing for Jesus in what like beyond what he asked us to do, and we're doing just too much. We're doing the most, right? And feeling like I don't get to need and feeling like I'm not getting the help. Yet we don't connect, again, we don't connect with that part within us to be able to even express this, even in a form of prayer, right? So we don't even see it within us. We don't ask Jesus to see it. We don't ask our faith, to activate our faith to say and be curious. And then it's like a sense of a stuckness that can happen. Like my reflections are to totally help shift things from like this survival place, hoping to, so you can see what's hard and hopefully cling on to goodness and move towards hope. So I don't want to get us stuck there, right? But just, I mean, these are some of just those kinds of gut level mind thinking, spiraling, like, can I say this out loud? Like, I remember trying so hard to affect change through structure. Then as things change, being more relaxed, right? And I'm keeping the kids busy, yada, yada. I now laugh at my attempt at like fixing or tweaking how my spouse showed up, right? The key word is fixing, because nobody wants to be fixed, right? Side note is that like it lands more like the nagging wife that we're trying not to be. And I know I was definitely trying to avoid portraying the per my premarital wise counsel, like being the nagging wife, right? But I gradually came to realize that no husband wants to feel queued up by criticism, no matter how gently or harmless we think we are coming across, right? Because I think sometimes I realize, like, man, I thought that was a vulnerable ask, but it was like low key packaged in a way that can just rub wrong, because I'm not saying what I needed. And not connecting with the greater need. It was more like, why didn't you this? Why didn't you that? But it was like, if I could get to the root need, oof, that could have done some things. I mean, even back then, like, what was I missing? Like, I'm using the I statement. It's not working, right? If y'all familiar with I statements, but which is a good tool. But I think, yeah, maybe I just, sometimes we are just growing. I'll put it that way. The point is, I realize I change. Um, like it was needed. A change was needed to happen, and that behavior modification alone somehow wasn't going to soothe any kind of itch that I was having, any kind of those kind of spirally thought. Like, surprise, changing behavior alone is it can be good for I think temporary time, because the pain below the immediate surface, like, it bulged enough to say, like, ignoring what's moving within is not sustainable, sis. Nor is it trying. If I'm just trying my best at mastering the circumstances, or again fixing people's behavior to be just right, aka our kids. Sometimes we're like, do this, do that, we're just kind of trying to fix them in this neat way so it doesn't create any eruption inside of us. And I think that there's a time and a place. Definitely keep order. And it does help soothe everybody's nervous system. But I'm talking about that smiling, gritting through your teeth and giving you orders, kind of a thing. Okay. So I think as I've worked with women over the years, I realized that she tends to lack the sense of compassion, comfort for self, and just a sense of honesty that can help create a clarity that's being yearned for. Seriously. So I'm going to stop here because that's a lot to ponder and think on. And I'm going to come back around with some tools, somehow what's next kind of a thing. Like, what do I do now that I notice these things? You've got me over here pondering and noticing the little nudges and things like that. So what's next? So, but like, if you did enjoy this chat, found it useful, hey, share it with a friend and leave a review so I know how this is impacting you. And definitely, if you're looking for someone to walk with you, to consult with you through this stage of life, connect and add vulnerability as your subject. I'm beginning to open a few spots to work with a few amazing women and their family. I know it's needed. I needed it before I needed some deep therapy. And that was good too. But I think sometimes we can organize some things and become aware of some things just a little bit ahead of time, right? We'll call it therapeutic coaching. All right. Thanks for hanging out today. I hope you feel a little bit better than when you showed up. If not, I'm praying for you. Hang in there. Thank you for listening. I hope this experience has allowed you to connect within and that you feel inspired to flourish well. Until next time, keep healing for her. It is worth it. You can follow us here and reach out by emailing us at healingforher@gmail.com. That is HEALING, the number 4, HER @gmail.com. Thank you.